Welcome to HFY Codex. If you love epic sci-fi stories where humanity shines, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for thrilling HFY adventures. Join us and be part of the journey. The Hunger Price the Space Bazaar was full of noise, lights, and voices from many worlds. But no one looked at her as she walked slowly between the stalls, her bare feet cold against the metal floor, her thin body shaking with hunger. Kaleri was just a shadow to them, just another refugee girl, bones under gray skin, ribs showing under a worn cloth tied around her chest. Her stomach had been empty for 2 days, maybe more. She had stopped counting. The smell of cooked meat made her dizzy. Roasted protein strips, fried synth chick, warm breads from steam ovens. But everything had a price, and she had nothing. Not a single credit chip to her name. She had begged at 3 stalls already, but each time she was kicked, pushed away, or ignored. She had learned long ago that begging only worked if you had something to offer. Her hands shook as she stepped inside a dark food shack near the edge of the bazaar. The lights were dim, shadows dancing on the walls. A human sat alone at the table, eating slowly. One arm resting on the bench beside him, he looked strong, older, with a stubble-covered face and dark eyes that didn't seem cruel like the others. He wore a black jacket with faded military patches. "One of them," said Rourke. Kaleri's knees bent without thought. She knelt on the floor in front of him, head bowed, voice cracking. "I have no credits, human," she said quietly, "but my body is healthy, still warm. You may use it for 1 meal." There was silence, long and strange, only the sound of the food shack's fan humming in the ceiling. A few heads turned, one man snorted, another laughed, waiting for the human to nod and take her offer, but Rourke didn't speak right away. Instead, he stared at her, not with hunger, but confusion, as if he had just seen something broken that should never have been broken at all. Kaleri kept her eyes on the floor, expecting him to grab her, pull her up, or make her follow him. But instead, she felt something soft fall on her shoulders. It was his jacket, warm, thick, and heavy, covering her chest and arms like a shield. "Eat first," he said simply. Then looked at the shack owner and raised 2 fingers. "Feed her too." She looked up, blinking fast. "You don't want." She whispered, but he just shook his head and motioned to the bench across from him. Slowly, unsure, she sat down, eyes wide, heart racing. She had offered her body so many times before just to survive. But no one had ever refused. No one had ever fed her first. A plate arrived. Steaming hot food laid in front of her. Her hands moved fast before her mind could catch up, shoving the food into her mouth like a starved animal, chewing and swallowing without stopping to breathe. Rourke didn't laugh, didn't judge. He just sat back, arms folded, watching her with calm eyes. He waited until she slowed down, till her body stopped shaking so much. "You got a name?" he asked. She wiped her mouth with her sleeve, afraid to speak, then whispered, "Kaleri? Where are your people?" He asked. "Gone," she said. "My house fell. I was sold, then lost, then forgotten." The other people in the shack started muttering. Some laughed again. One man stood up, pointing at her. She offered herself, "Human, if you won't take her, I will." Rourke stood up slowly, turning toward the man, his voice low but strong. "Sit down." The man froze, looked into Rourke's eyes, and sat down again without another word. Kaleri stared, unsure why this stranger was protecting her. Her hand still clutched the last piece of bread like it might vanish. "You gave me food," she said quietly, "so take your payment." Rourke leaned forward, elbows on the table. "You're not for sale." She didn't understand. The words made no sense to her. She had never been anything else. She had never been more than something traded, touched, tossed aside. "I don't have anything else," she whispered. Yes, you do, he replied. You have breath, you have strength, you have a name. And you still have fire in your eyes, Kaliri. Looked down, tears gathering without her permission. She didn't want to cry. Not here, not again. Not in front of another man. Why? She asked softly. Why, help me? Rourke didn't smile, but his voice was kind. Because someone helped me once when I had nothing. Now it's my turn. She didn't know what to say. So she stayed silent, her hands gripping the plate tightly, finishing every last bite. When she stood up to leave, he stopped her. Where are you going? I don't know, she said. Back to the floor. Maybe you can come with me, he said. I run a shelter near the docking bay. Clean bed, no price, no tricks. Kaliri hesitated. The jacket still around her shoulders, still warm. Still real. I won't touch you, he said. Not unless you want a hug one day. She almost laughed. But it came out like a cough, a small, confused sound from deep in her chest. And so she followed him into the night, her stomach full for the first time in weeks, and for the first time in her life. She wondered what it would feel like to be free. The stranger's meal Kaliri woke up in a real bed. Something soft beneath her back, a blanket pulled over her, and warm air around her face. For a long moment, she thought she was dead. Then she heard humming, low and soft, not from a machine, but from a person. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking. In the dim light of a metal ceiling, wires hanging, old fans spinning above her. She sat up quickly, alarmed. Her fingers clutched the blanket, ready to run, but there were no chains, no locked doors, no collars. Just a quiet room and a folded pile of clean clothes beside her bed. Her old clothes were gone, and she still wore the human's black jacket. It was too big for her, but warm and safe. It smelled faintly of oil and soap. She walked slowly into the next room, bare feet tapping on cold floor panels, her eyes scanning everything like prey in a new cage. But no danger came. Commander Rourke was there, sitting at a small table, fixing a broken light unit, his hands moving with careful precision, wires between his fingers, a tool in his mouth. You're up, he said without turning. Good. I made tea. If you drink that stuff. She didn't know what to say. So she just nodded and sat down, staring at the steam rising from a chipped metal cup. Where are we? She asked after a while. Refugee shelter, Docking Bay 9, he said. This place was for soldiers once. Now it's mine. She sipped the tea, bitter but warm, her stomach still full from last night's meal. And that alone felt strange, too good to last. Why did you bring me here? She asked. You could have left me after the food? Rourke looked up, setting the broken unit down. Because no one else was going to? She frowned. I don't understand you. That's all right, he said. You don't have to. She finished the tea and placed the cup down carefully. You said it was a shelter. Yeah, he nodded. Some stay a night, some stay a year. Depends what you want. She thought about that. She didn't know what she wanted. Survival had always been her only plan. She had no idea what came after food and sleep. He stood up and walked to a storage bin, pulling out clothes, setting them beside her. These should fit. Go ahead, change. The water unit works. Barely Kaliri picked up the clothes and looked at them like rare treasure. Soft pants, a shirt, even underclothes, all clean, all real. When she stepped into the washroom and looked in the mirror, she almost cried, not because of pain, but because she saw someone there who didn't look broken anymore. Later, she helped Rourke clean the shelter, washing old trays, sweeping dusty corners, and folding bedsheets for empty bunks. He didn't ask her to do it, but she needed to feel useful. You ever work a cum terminal? He asked. She shook her head. I can show you, he said. Might help you find a real job later. Why are you teaching me? She asked. Because I'd rather see you alive than dead, he said simply. The words hit her like a soft hammer. Strange and heavy, She wasn't used to being treated like she mattered. That night, she lay in the same bed, but didn't sleep. Right away, her thoughts raced, trying to find the catch, the hidden price. But nothing had come yet. The next morning, other girls arrived, cold and hungry, some younger than her, some too quiet to speak. And Rourke fed them all without question. She asked him why he did this, and he said, "Because it's better than doing nothing." Some of the other girls gave her strange looks. One whispered, "He likes you." She flinched. "He hasn't touched me." Another one snorted, "Not yet." But Kaleri shook her head. "No. He's not like the others." She didn't know why she said it, but she believed it, deep inside. Rourke didn't look at her the way other men did. He didn't see her as a product. Or a trade. One evening, she helped him cook, standing beside him. Watching as he stirred something over the old heat plate, the scent was rich and strange. "I used to be a soldier," he said suddenly. "Led missions, broke things, ended wars." She looked at him, unsure if he was proud or ashamed. Then one day, he continued, I saw a girl just like you, starving, sold, crying." Kaleri's hands froze, her throat tight. "I walked away," he said, voice quiet now. "Told myself it wasn't my problem." He turned to face her, eyes dark and tired. "That was my worst mistake." Kaleri didn't say anything, but she reached for his hand, just for a second, and held it before letting go. He didn't say a word. Just kept stirring the food, and for the first time in her life, Kaleri began to believe that not every human wanted something from her. Some just wanted her to eat, to rest, and to live. More than a body asterisk, the station lights flickered as morning came. Cold and blue across the metal floors, Kaleri stood by the wide window near the shelter's entrance. Watching ships arrive and leave like blinking stars in slow motion, she had been staying at the shelter for 10 days now, wearing clean clothes, eating warm food, and sleeping in safety. But part of her still waited for the dream to break. Each time Rourke spoke to her kindly, each time he handed her food or smiled slightly when she got something right on the com panel. She waited for the price, the demand, the cold hand grabbing her wrist again. But it never came. She wasn't used to this kind of freedom, and it scared her more than chains ever had. "Kaleri," Rourke said gently, walking over with a small data pad, "can you check the names on this list? We got 5 new refugees arriving today." She took the pad from his hand carefully, nodding, "I can try." "You're doing more than trying," he said. "You're helping keep this place running." The words stayed with her long after. He walked away. Her hands moved over the screen, but her mind was on his voice. Not sharp like command, not soft like pity. Just real. The other girls in the shelter had started to talk to her more, asking questions, watching how Rourke treated her with quiet respect. Some of them called her his favorite, but not with jealousy, with hope. "Did he buy you?" One younger girl asked once, whispering under a blanket at night. Kaleri shook her head. "No." "Then why does he let you stay?" The girl asked. Kaleri looked at the ceiling, unsure how to answer. "Because I didn't run." She finally said, "I asked for food, and he gave me more." She didn't explain the rest. How she had offered her body that night, how Rourke had refused and offered kindness instead. Some things were still too big for words. One evening, she found herself alone in the repair room where Rourke kept broken tools and storage crates. Her eyes landed on a cracked mirror near the wall. She stepped in front of it slowly, heart pounding for no reason, and looked at herself. Her skin was no longer gray and dry. Her cheeks had color again. Her hair was cleaner, tied back behind her. Ears and her eyes, they looked alive. She touched the mirror gently. Then heard footsteps behind her. Rourke entered with a box of supplies. Paused when he saw her, then smiled slightly. "You're not broken," he said, like it was the simplest truth in the world. She turned toward him, tears forming fast. Her voice shaky. "You never asked me for anything." "No," he said softly. "Not even once," she whispered, stepping closer. "Why?" Rourke set the box down and leaned against the wall. "Arms folded because you're not something to take. You're someone to protect." She shook her head. "But I was nothing. I offered myself like a thing, and you were starving." He interrupted gently and afraid, "And still brave enough to walk to my table. That's not nothing." She looked at him for a long time. Her voice no louder than breath. "I don't know how to be more than a body." "You're already more," he replied. "You just haven't seen it yet." She closed her eyes. Hands clenched at her sides. "I don't want to be used anymore." "You won't be," he promised. Later that night, as she returned to her bed, she found a folded note under her pillow. Written in shaky but careful letters, "You are safe here, and you always will be, Rourke." She stared at the note for a long time, holding it close to her chest like it was the only real thing in the world. But peace never lasted long on a station like this. 2 days later, a large alien transport docked nearby, carrying traders, fighters, and nobles from the house worlds of the outer belt. Kalari's breath caught when she saw them, especially the tall, red-robed warlord stepping into the bazaar, eyes scanning the crowd with hunger and pride. His voice boomed through the stalls. "Where is my lost property? Where is the girl who ran?" Kiri backed into the shadows, her heart racing, body frozen, mouth dry. She knew that voice, knew the smell of his robes, the heavy ring he wore when he used the back of his hand. He was the one she escaped, the one who told her she'd never be free unless she died. Now he was here. He looked straight at her through the crowd, and his lips curled into a cruel smile. "There you are," he said, stepping forward. My little servant, Rourke, stepped between them like a wall. Calm and quiet. "She's not yours anymore," he said. The warlord laughed. "She was marked, paid for. She offered herself again to survive." "It's the same contract." Kalari couldn't breathe, but Rourke spoke again, firmer this time. "One meal doesn't buy a life," and the crowd began to gather, watching what would happen next. A meal that changed everything. The space bazaar went quiet as the red-robed warlord stepped forward, his heavy boots hitting the ground. With a slow, dangerous rhythm, people moved aside, not daring to block his path. Not even the guards. Kalari stood frozen, her hands shaking behind Rourke's back, her voice stuck in her throat. Her heart felt like it would break through her ribs. "She's mine," the warlord growled, his sharp teeth showing as he smiled cruelly. "You shelter my property, human. And that's theft." Rourke didn't move, didn't blink. His voice was steady. "She asked for food, not chains. You have no right to her." The warlord held up a thin metal shard. The edge glowed faint blue. "Blood contract," he said. "She was sold, escaped, and offered herself again to survive. That makes it legal." Murmurs swept the crowd. Some nodded, some looked away, others waited, wondering what the human would do. Kalari's knees felt weak. She tried to step back, but her legs wouldn't move. Her mind screamed one thing: run, but her body stayed frozen in place. Rourke reached into his jacket and pulled out a small recording device, pressed a button, and her voice echoed through the open air. "I have no credits, human, but you can use my body for one meal." Then silence. Gasps followed. But Rourke didn't stop there. "She was starving," he said, his voice louder now. That was desperation, not consent. What kind of law claims a person because they're hungry? A woman in the crowd nodded slowly. Then a man near the food stall stepped forward. "He's right," he said. "She didn't sell herself. She begged not to die." The warlord turned, furious. Silence. "She's a house servant, marked and purchased. Her value is written in blood." Kalari finally stepped forward, eyes wide, but her voice clear. I'm not a servant, she said. Not anymore. The warlord pointed at her, his eyes burning. You were nothing. You were mine. I was hungry, she said. You beat me for speaking, starved me for thinking. You didn't own me, you broke me. Rourke placed a gentle hand in front of her again, shielding her body with his. Not anymore, he said. She's under my protection, Galactic. Peace officers arrived, alerted by the crowd noise and the argument. Their black armor shining under the station lights. One of them stepped between the men, voice cold. What's going on here? The warlord snarled. She's a runaway, blood-marked. I have a contract. Rourke handed the officer the recording device. She offered herself for food. Not service. This isn't a contract. It's evidence of survival. The officer listened, eyes narrowing, then looked at Kaleri. Do you wish to go with him? No, she said, voice firm. I wish to live. The officer nodded and turned toward the warlord until reviewed by the council. She is free under sanctuary protocol. The warlord screamed, raising his hand to strike, but two guards blocked him fast, weapons drawn. You'll regret this. Human, he hissed at Rourke. You think one meal makes you her savior? No, Rourke said quietly. It makes me decent with that. The guards pulled the warlord back, dragging him into the shadows of the dock. Still shouting, still cursing, Kaleri fell to her knees, shaking, but not from fear this time, from release. The crowd slowly broke apart. Some nodding, some stunned, others silent with shame. But no one stopped her as she stood again, held up by Rourke's steady hand. Later, in the quiet of the shelter, she sat by the same table where she once begged for food, now drinking tea. Beside the man who had changed everything. I don't know what I am now, she whispered. If I'm not for sale, not a servant. What am I? You're Kaleri, Rourke said. That's enough. I thought I was only a body, she said. A thing to be taken, used, forgotten. You're not, he said. And you never were. She looked down at her hands, then back at him. Then what was that first meal? He smiled softly. The start of your life, she nodded, and for the first time, truly believed him. News of the event spread, the video shared across trade routes and border stations, sparking arguments in courtrooms and council chambers. Questions asked about refugees, consent, and the cost of survival. Kaleri was invited to speak. Not as a slave, but as a survivor, her voice steady as she said, I asked for food, and someone gave me dignity instead, and in every word, every breath. She honored the man who saw her not as property but as a person.